They found pristine waters.
Clean waters.
Clean soil.
We drink from rivers.
We
from
drank
wells. I mean, look now, they're putting toxic waste in our mines, polluting the water table. The fountains down the road is now toxic uranium and toxic cyanide, toxic mercury. And man, who does that?
Now, the damage that these people have caused in just the last 100 years that they've been on this continent is more than the damage that Africans had caused on the continent for the millions of years that they've been in existence. And this continent is being destroyed by this thing called Western civilization. The same thing that got them to run away from Europe. They ran away from the consequences of their civilization, which was pollution, wars, hunger, depletion of resources, death, overcrowding, and they brought the very same thing in sicknesses. They brought that to
look at Sisi John Rhodes. I was reading the other day, the reason actually he came down was because of sickness.
Of course. And if you remember, they wiped out the American Indian because of sickness and genocide. And they then occupied America and created it to be a white man's country. It's not a white man's country.
I'll punch holes. And I want you to answer with like 1 minute to half a minute, because I want us to cover as much ground as possible. I want us to look at civilization, but classify it properly. Governance.
Well, when you look at governance, Africa had governance that was able to allow them to not only regulate the people, but to live in their environment sustainably, that it was going to be productive, keep people alive, but be able to nurture life into perpetuity. Right now, we've got a governance system that makes us look like we're productive, but we're eating into our children's futures. And I can bet you that with the current trajectory, we probably will not even do another century if we don't annihilate ourselves with nuclear war or pollution.
Wow. Number 2, education.
The education is miseducation. The African has been indoctrinated to abuse himself, exploit himself, and transfer the wealth of this continent to Europe. And this has been done by this education system that has got things like economics, that create scarcity, that create lack, and transfer of African resources into the hands of the West for them to make a profit and for us to hold paper money that we can buy back finished goods from our very same resources.
Colonialism focus on economics, banking, and etc.
Well, when we look at economics, the definition itself is about the management of scarce resources. The world has got abundant resources. They are not scarce, but they are made scarce by this very same Eurocentric system that created this study that takes resources, puts them into the hands of a few corporations or what we call fixing companies. The bullion, the platinum is sold on the London Bullion Exchange. It is then controlled and regulated by people who don't produce gold, and it is regulated and controlled by people who are not the biggest buyers of gold. That's economics. Then the economic system of accounting. We account using a double entry system in a multi-extraction system from the economy. So we do not calculate the true cost of what we're extracting from nature, what we're extracting from humanity, and then what we are making at the end of the day and how it impacts to humanity and whether it makes value for humanity. So that is a corrupt system that actually doesn't build value but destroys value.
Agriculture.
Wow. Now that's becoming...
I know. I'll go to town.
It's a sad story. Agriculture is...
What is in our stomachs? The food that we are eating. Because the other day I put up a video and people got mad when I say Jesus did not die for the black man. And my illustration was that the crown that is on the heads of the African is European education. The nails that are in the hands is our labor in terms of how we're working. It's actually nailed on the cross. There's a sword that is on the stomach of the African that talks to our water and our food. There's another nail on our feet. That's migration, passports, and etc. So I want you to go to town on the stomach issues. Agriculture and colonialism.
The stomach issues talks to the very same issue that defines what is poverty in the world. The definition of poverty, according to the Eurocentric system, is that anybody with less than $1.90 a day is in poverty. And in Africa, people are able to feed themselves without $1.90. They are able to shelter themselves without $1.90. They're able to clothe themselves without $1.90. And so the African definition of poverty should actually be that the person who has got no factors of production to give themselves food, shelter, and clothing, That's a person who's impoverished, which is what they did when they came to Africa, is they created a system of impoverishment by taking the land, taking access to wild animals, putting hunting licenses and stopping people from hunting. That is the way they created colonialism, and it was also the way they created capitalism in Europe, by doing what is called primitive accumulation, taking resources or public resources, putting them into the hands of a few, and depriving the majority so that they can only offer their labor to capital. And so now when you...
I read that statement that says in good socialism and capitalism, it is when the rich get richer and the poor ones make children.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And when you hear the fight between the West and this issue of socialism, capitalism and socialism, there's nothing wrong with socialism if the resources of a people are going to be shared among the people. Yes, but what the Europeans hate about socialism is that socialism allows dark-skinned peoples to have access to their rich resources in their nations and benefit their people with those resources. And they don't want that, so they are proponents of capitalism, which actually believes in taking resources of the rest of the world to put them into the hands of European nations and European peoples, white peoples, so that they can sustain their own people at the expense of everybody else.
Out of the bag. Right. Are we eating food or eating plastic?
We are not eating food. And that's why we're saying that as part of this system of creating capitalism and colonialism, of taking away factors of production, they decided to destroy our food after taking our land. So now that we are awake, we are fighting for our land, and we want our land back, and we are taking our land back. They've decided to tamper with the food, create hybrids, eliminate organic seeds that grow on their own, that reproduce on their own, and create hybrids and GMOs that do not reproduce. And by so doing...
What is the impact of that stuff in the body of a human being?
First of all, let's talk about the impact on life itself, in the aspect that once you take away the reproductive capacity of a food, you are not able to reproduce food on your own. You become dependent on the person that has taken that seed and turned it into a hybrid that you must buy every single year. That's the very first point. The second point is that on a health basis, these hybrids are created with a greed-centric focus by biotech companies to force you to use their pesticides, to force you to use their fertilizers, so that you can keep their tills ticking. And so now you've been deprived of the right to make food, and then the seeds that you're given to allow you to make food have to have pesticides, fertilizers, which makes them toxic.
Can food be used as a biological weapon?
Yes, it can be used as a biological weapon, because a lot of the GMOs are already engineered to kill certain bacteria, certain pesticides, and certain parasites, and even birds and natural predators upon these crops. So there's an inbuilt genetic engineering to make them toxic and poisonous for predators. Now, those toxins can also then be engineered to target particular ethnicities, particular RNAs, and particular DNAs by putting RNA disruptors within those genetically modified foods. So they can actually target your RNA in your gut.
When you eat the food.
When you eat the food.
You are being managed.
Yes. And this is why some people are saying that one of the major reasons why we're having increases in autism, ever since genetically modified foods came into effect, and ever since the use of glyphosate or BT upon these crops has begun to influence
some of these chickens are like 8 weeks. They inject those poor little birds for 8 weeks, and you buy chicken wings. One wonders, what are we eating exactly?
The first thing with chicken is, to identify that there's a problem with chicken, is that for those of us who are old enough, we know that chicken doesn't taste like chicken anymore.
You know, it's plastic.
Yes.
When I go home, then mommy knows I'm home, and she kills a chicken. Hell no. I've been to Kentucky, I've been to KFC. Please pardon me, the owners of the brands. I've been to McDonald's. I've ordered baby chicken. I've eaten it. But what I eat there is piri-piri, is the sauce. It's not the chicken. My mom does not need to put anything in that chicken. You just take the chicken, boil it, and put salt. And it's fine.
And remember, we're not only Africans identifying these problems in this death system. White people, Americans themselves,